David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have for you a new pen from Conklin, and that pen is the Endura. But more specifically, I have a limited edition of the Endura only available through Goulet pens. So what I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Conklin Endura with its unique Abalone treatment, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Goulet Pens for providing this pen on loan for review. The pen arrives in this box. While the actual box is the standard one for Conklin, I do like that they have a customized sleeve for this model with the Abalone treatment kind of featured on literally every side of the box. Then inside the regular box, we have a number of different marketing materials and a use and care guide. There are a couple of standard international cartridges, looks like one blue and one black, and then we have the pen. This is the Conklin Endura. The Endura model was originally released back in 1924 and was around for many years. This new version is based on the original model and is available in two different limited edition offerings. There is one that has a rose gold plated trim, which is available at a wide number of retailers, but this chrome plated version I have here is an exclusive offering available only through Goulet pens. Each of the two different versions are limited editions of 1,898 units, with 1898 being the year Conklin Pen Company was founded. Now, this pen is made with abalone, harvested from New Zealand. Now, you might be familiar with mother of pearl. Now, abalone is the actual animal, and then mother of pearl is the iridescent inner layer of the shell of a mollusk. When people refer to this material as abalone, they are essentially just describing the source of the mother of pearl. But there are other sources as well, such as oysters and mussels. So abalone is mother of pearl, but not all mother of pearl is abalone. And it's the mother of pearl produced by abalone, which is typically kind of has more of a dark rainbow color compared to other sources of mother of pearl. Those other sources are more common than abalone. And the harvesting of abalone is much more limited, making the supply of that material much harder to obtain. So if someone refers to abalone, then they're really talking about mother of pearl produced by abalone. If they just say mother of pearl, it's generally from those other sources. The abalone is cut into very thin sheets. These sheets are then trimmed into narrow strips and then affixed to the barrel and cap in a faceted design. Then it's coated in resin. It gives the pen an interesting look when it kind of appears to be faceted, but then when you touch it, it feels rounded. The facets do a really good job of letting the colorful material hit the light in different angles and really bring out the rainbow elements of the pen. Okay, let's take a closer look at the rest of the pen. The chrome-plated end of the cap is flat. This transitions into the rather chunky clip. I have to say, I've never been that fond of Conklin's clips. They operate just fine. There's just something about the step-down design and the company name stamped in cursive that has just really never done it for me. The cap is straight, and this transitions into the chrome-plated cap band, which on the front says Endura, and on the back, it has the limited edition number of this pen. There is a medium-sized step down to the barrel, which, like the cap, is straight. And then at the end, it is chrome-plated with some posting threads, and the end is flat. The cap twists off with a single rotation, which is nice. And underneath, we have this Jowo No. 6 stainless steel nib. This nib is available in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, 1.1 stub, and then the one I have here, which is an Omniflex nib. You'll notice the rather prominent cutouts in the shoulders of the nib, which help facilitate the flexing of this particular nib. And then here's a look at the plastic feed. Now, this is the newer version of the Omniflex nib. There was an older version, which in my experience and the experience of many others, performed rather poorly. I think that's being rather kind. The ones that I had purchased and tested were pretty terrible. I will say that I have not experienced the same ink flow issues with this design. You'll see in the writing sample, but I'm pleased with the performance of this nib. The section is metal and then transitions into the threads and a medium-sized step up to the barrel. The section is only very slightly concave. The swale is really minimal. And the end result is that I do find this section to be more on the slippery side. I find that if the swale would have been a little bit deeper, it could have offset the slipperiness of the material a little bit. In addition, the section isn't really that long, so if you find yourself having to compensate by altering your grip, you'll have it resting on the threads and the step up. And while I don't find that to be an ideal situation, I don't find the threads in transition to be overly uncomfortable. This pin is long enough to use unposted. The cap does thread to post. In general, I'm not a fan of thread to post mechanisms, mainly because I just don't care for the effort involved to uncap the pen and then post it. So I rarely do so. And then you're stuck looking at the end of the pen, which has a mechanism and threads on it which you aren't utilizing. I actually don't mind it so much on this pen. Now, the cap does post in only about 3/4 of a rotation, which is a good thing. However, there are 3 different threads, so only on one of the threads does the clip actually align with the nib. This isn't the biggest issue since the cap is long enough that even when the clip has kind of a downward facing orientation, it's not rubbing up against your hand. But for me, the cap is a little bit heavy, so I find that posting it really backweights the pen and throws off the balance, so I prefer not to post it at all. This is a cartridge converter pen. It utilizes standard international cartridges and a converter is provided. With the metal aspects of this section and barrel, eyedropping this pen would not be recommended. The Conklin Endura retails for $116. And as I mentioned, this is the chrome-plated version, and it's a limited edition exclusive to Goulet pens. Goulet also has the rose gold version as well. As an added bonus, if you purchase either of those versions from Goulet, they're running a promotion right now where they will include your choice of a 30-ounce bottle of Monteverde ink, which typically sells for $10. I think they have like 10 or so colors that you can choose from, so that's a nice bonus. I feel that the $116 is a reasonable price to pay for what you receive with the Endura. And it's nice to have a bottle of ink thrown in for that price as well. Now, while there are several aspects of this pen which I feel can be improved on, take this into consideration. When pens are sent to me for review, they're either provided or sent on loan or intended for me to give away. This one was sent on loan, but I think that I'll end up purchasing it. While I'm not a huge fan of the section and the clip, I feel that the full abalone treatment is unique and something that I don't currently have in my collection. And in addition, this updated Omniflex nib really performs well. And I don't have that many flexible nibs in my collection either, so it kind of helps fill in some gaps. And I feel it's reasonably priced. So this is one that won't be making its way back to Goulet. Okay. So now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Conklin Endura. In regard to a couple of other Conklin pens, here it is with a Conklin Duraflex. Then here it is with a Conklin All-American. And then here it is with a Pilot Metropolitan. And in regard to a couple of other pens, here it is with a Sailor Compass 1911. Then here it is with a Pilot Prera. And finally, a pen that I don't bring out that often, which is the Lamy Vista, which has the same design as the All-Star and the Safari, but just has transparent acrylic. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with the Prera and the Vista, and then finally the Conklin Duraflex. So here we go with the writing sample for the Conklin Endura. This is the Omniflex nib, And the ink that I'm using, appropriately enough, is Troublemaker Abalone. I mean, I have an ink named Abalone, so how could I not use it with this pen? Here's what the ink looks like. It is a nice lighter blue with some red sheening to it. This is what it looks like in regard to something like the Montblanc JFK blue. And then I find the sheening to be very similar to that of the Sailor Ink Studio number 123, but the Sailor Ink Studio is a little bit more on the gray side as opposed to the blue side. This is what the bottle looks like, with a cute little bear on the front, and you can see that this is the Abalone. I actually do have a review of this ink on the channel if you'd like to see that. But in regard to the rest of the writing sample, I do find that you can get a decent amount of flex coming out of this nib, hence the name Omniflex. You would hope that that would be the case, and that I've found that it doesn't necessarily get too ink starved. Starting off here very light, and then you can get a bit of flex out of here, and let me just kind of do it fast. And it took a while before it to get a little bit ink starved, but you know, if you're taking it easy, then it's something that you won't have to worry about. In regard to ink flow, it is decent. And then also, just to see the cross section. And in regard to reverse writing, it is rather sharp. And then in regard to some fast writing, it did have a couple of little hard starts there, but for the most part, I've found that if you are using this nib as intentioned, then the ink flow is perfectly fine on here. And it didn't have the same issues that I had with the previous version of the Omniflex nib, which wasn't an overall great experience. So here we have the Conklin Endura. As I mentioned before, even though I don't think that this pen is perfect and there's things that I'd like to improve on it, it's something that I'm still going to keep in my collection because I think it has a lot to offer. And then on top of that, I feel it's a reasonable price for what it brings to the table. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.